So just to clarify, you had the Bible the whole time. You just somebody at the church must have stolen it. Yeah.
One time I left it in someone's car, and I thought, well, maybe I left it in someone's car.
Mm-hmm.
But I put that cover on it, and I put it with, because I've got a whole row of Bibles.
Yeah.
And I didn't eat. I got it covered. I didn't know which one it was.
Yeah. How funny.
Oh, yes, I will. I love that. I never got very creamy. Sometimes you cook it too long, and you really want the texture. I'm a big person on texture. This is the wonderful thing you put on the I am fine. How are you?
All right. So good morning, all. I don't know if Brandon's joining us online or not, but he's home sick and with a sick child. So, yeah. I think all three, honestly. But I think they've just kind of been passing back and forth to each other. So immediately right now, it's Thaden, it's the baby. But I think the other two have been sick too. So, me personally, I'm like, suck it up, man. There's stuff to get done. Yeah, there's stuff to get done, but, whatever. Some people just aren't like me, I guess. So,
Some people feel guilty about dumping it all on their wife to take care of.
That wasn't the case either. So, do I?
I'm so glad we have this.
Yeah.
You're okay.
Oh, no, I did say that to my kids all the time. Get up, you're fine. Yeah.
I said that to Lindsay once.
Yeah.
If you will just stop crying and sit down and breathe deep, you'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Come to find out her elbow was broken.
Yeah. Yep, I've been there too. I made Tyson one time when he was a kid. He's probably 5 or 6 years old, but he was out at church camp with us, and he fell, and he was crying about his knee hurting, and I was just like, dry it up, man, you're fine, And he kept crying, but all the kids were like over in this area. I was like, stand behind this tree until you stop crying, because I just get mad at him. And then I look, and from underneath the edge of his shorts, like this blood started coming down his leg. I was like, oh, and kind of lifted up, and he had a big old gash in his knee. I was like, well, that's a problem. So being the good dad that I was, I sent him off with somebody else to go get a Band-Aid. So, yeah. No. Nah.
The other person took care of it.
It wasn't that deep. I'm the wrong person to come to when somebody's hurt. I'm like, you'll be all right. But I'm that way myself too. I'm like, I'll be fine. So. Uh-huh.
Was complaining about her wrist and her arm, and I mean, it would still be you're fine.
Yeah.
They had track and field at school the next day.
Uh-huh.
I put a sling on her, sent her to school to do track and field, picked her up that afternoon. My arm still hurts.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we got to get x-ray. It was broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the year.
Yeah.
I know, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
I sent a daughter with pneumonia.
Yeah. Did you really? Yeah.
I promised them at the beginning of the year, all 3 girls, this is of course many years ago, I said, if you have a perfect attendance, you can get $5. Well,
$5 for perfect attendance.
I was really generous.
Yeah.
And, of course, Mandy, she wanted that $5.
Yeah.
And I had to sign a paper that if she was sick and going to the hospital, I had to sign a paper saying I'd still give her $5.
Yeah. How funny. How funny. And it's not that, honestly, it's not that I didn't care about my kids. And I got it. If they were hurt, I took care of it. But there were sometimes it's like, man, go get a drink and you'll be fine. Like, don't be dramatic. But I'm that way. I was kind of that way, like, with other people's children, too, is the problem. Like, the kids that I coached, because depending on what kind of upbringing they had, some of these parents, they coddle their kids so much at the tiniest little thing. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Yeah, it's going to hurt in football when you get tackled. Get up. You're fine. Just so. Yeah, that's right. Well, so I remember one time in a game, Tyson, he's probably like 4th grade, I think, and he was trying to tackle somebody. Well, the kid was running with the ball, and just the way it happened, real quick, just the top of his helmet went right in his gut and just knocked the wind out of him. He made the tackle, but then there was a timeout, so the team comes over, and I'm telling him some different things, and then everybody's going back out, and he's like, Dad, I can't, I just, and he's got tears. He's like, I can't breathe. And I'm like, all right, put your hands up above your head, put them up on your helmet. And he does. It's like, take 2 big breaths. And he does. And then the ref, blows whistle. I'm like, all right, get back out there. And so he goes running out. And I can see him wiping tears out from underneath his face mask and stuff. Yeah, Dad of the Year. That's who I was. So anyway, this is our last time to get together before Christmas and before New Year's and all that. So, I thought I'd give us a little bit more Christmas trivia. I think most of this, is new information, or at least new to me. So, but I'm going to go through these kind of quick. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock, too, because I don't want to spend too much time on it. But some of these are really easy. I wanted to do some things where you guys, you can prove your knowledge and just, your Christmas awareness skills. Okay? So, which popular Christmas beverage is also called milk punch? Eggnog. Very good. So from now on, if you've never heard that before, call it milk punch. Yeah. How many ghosts in the... Oh, okay. How many ghosts show up in the Christmas Carol?
4.
4, because there's past, present, future, but there's also Jacob Marley that says you got 4 ghosts coming. So there's 4. Trick question. What are the traditional, I say traditional because I don't think it's even part of our tradition anymore, but the traditional 12 days of Christmas. Like there's the song, but there are, or at least there used to be actually 12 days of Christmas.
What dates?
Yeah.
What, you ask what the dates are?
Uh-huh. It's pretty close, yeah. So starting on the day after Christmas. So Christmas is Christmas Day. And then it's the 12 days after that. So it's the last 6 days of the old year and the first 6 days of the new year.
Isn't that also called Boxing Day in England?
There's Boxing Day. Is that in Canada or is that in England? Yeah. Is it in England too? I knew Canada had it. What country has the most reindeer? Actual reindeer. Not the North Pole. What country? It's not Canada. Not Greenland. It's actually Norway. Norway has the most reindeer. Who knew? How many Scrabble points, not on the board, but just based on the points on the letters themselves, how many Scrabble points for the word Christmas?
24.
That's too much. Too much. It's actually 16. Did you say 17? You were really close. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
She would have gotten it if you
Yeah,
just
I know. That's my fault. I jumped on it. What is Frosty the Snowman's nose made of? It's not a carrot. It's not coal. A button.
nose. Button nose.
Yeah. With a corncob pipe and a button nose and 2 eyes made out of coal. Which U.S. president was the first to decorate the White House Christmas tree?
Oh, I read this last week.
Truman.
No,
No,
way before.
Yeah, it was.
After him.
Was it? It seems like it's one of the lesser known ones.
Mm-hmm.
McKinley or something maybe.
Franklin Pierce.
Pierce.
Franklin Pierce.
It was on Facebook. It was on Facebook.
Yeah. Which I can't remember. I'd have to go back through the list. Was he the one right before Lincoln or 2 before Lincoln? It's either Pierce Buchanan Lincoln or Buchanan Pierce Lincoln. I can't remember which one. Sorry.
He tries.
Well, because I've watched some biographies on different presidents and stuff. That's the only reason. And that sticks out to me because the guy before Lincoln did such a bad job and was so criticized that when the inauguration happened, he told Lincoln, if you are as happy as to get this job as I am to be leaving it, you must be the happiest man in the world. Like that was like he was ready to be done. The most popular toy of 1980. All right, 1980. Nope. Cabbage Patch was just a little bit after. 1980. It was designed by a professor of architecture in Budapest to teach his students about spatial awareness. The Rubik's Cube. Did you give away when I did that right there? The Rubik's Cube was the most popular toy in 1980. Do you know what a Rubik's Cube is? Okay, just checking. 1980 is before your time. That's why I was asking. Do they still make them? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, which U.S. president banned Christmas trees in the White House?
I'm sorry. Pardon me?
That's really funny. It wasn't him though.
Oh.
Yes,
Was
it was.
That was
Yeah, Theodore Roosevelt banned, and I didn't look up why, but apparently he banned Christmas trees in the White House. Maybe so. He might have been. Okay. True or false? This is going to be a really easy one. You got a 50-50 chance. True or false? Iceland has 13 Santas that visit throughout December. It is true. They call them the Yule Lads.
The what?
Yule Lads.
I thought you said Yule bags.
Nope. Yule Lads. Yeah, Yule Lads.
Yule bags.
I think there's just different days where a certain Santa comes to visit. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't look up more about it. I know. I should have, and I didn't. I apologize. Why do they call them Yule Lads? What do they do? Okay. What? Oh, different saints. Yeah, it could be. Could be. What are in the movie Elf, what are the 4 main food groups for elves, according to Buddy? We got candy canes and syrup. No. It's not sugar. It's candy corn, candy canes, and syrup. Well, because it's not Christmas all the time. They can have candy corn. No, it's not Christmas all the time. So they eat candy corn when it's not Christmas time. I think there's still some in the kitchen, honestly, that's been sitting in a bowl for a while. But anyway, candy corn, candy canes, and syrup. Okay, another one from Elf. What did Buddy, when he writes his note of apology, he says that he crammed something into the VCR. What did he cram into the VCR?
Spaghetti, probably.
It wasn't spaghetti. No. Because he's writing on the Etch-a-Sketch, and he says, I'm sorry that I messed everything up or whatever, and I'm sorry that I crammed 11 cookies into the VCR.
Oh,
11 cookies.
I just remember that mound of spaghetti in here.
Yeah. And puts the syrup on it, and then he takes Pop-Tarts and breaks them on top of it, and then just grabs it with his hands. Yeah. Yeah. She's like, Buddy made us breakfast. And then he hands her the Ziploc bag. He's like, and lunch. She's like, and lunch. Yeah. Y'all need to. It's still not my top 3, but it's probably in the top 5. But anyway, overall, Christmas movies, not overall, but Christmas for sure. Yeah. Which you'll have a chance. I think whatever station does a Christmas Story for 24 hours. Okay, I think it's like TBS is doing one and TNT is doing the other, something like that. But they're doing 24 hours of Elf. So you'll get a chance if you want to see it. In Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, what's the name of the elf that wants to become a dentist?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
The claymation show, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. There's the elf that wants to become a dentist. Okay, I'm not saying it because Lou's going to get on to me if I say it too soon.
I can see the little feller, but I can't remember his name. No, it's not Fred. It's. What is his name?
Is it like a generic name like that?
No. It's Hermie.
I mean, that's how he talks.
Hermie. Hermie. Hermey. Hermie. Short for Herman. It's Hermie. In the movie It's a Wonderful Life, what's the name of the town that George Bailey lives in? Close. You're almost there. Bedford Falls. Bedford Falls. Except for a little snippet where it's Potterstown or Pottersville. Yeah, Pottersville, I think. In Christmas Vacation, what did Clark Griswold's boss give him instead of a Christmas bonus?
Jelly of the month or something like that.
A 1-year membership in the Jelly of the Month Club. Clark, that's the gift that keeps giving the whole year. That it is, Edward. That it is. It's no, number one is probably A Christmas Story, but Christmas Vacation is probably number two. No, I haven't. I'm not sure if I'm going to. Huh? Fred Claus? It is steadily climbing. I love Fred Claus. Y'all need to watch it if you haven't seen it. It's on Netflix or something like that. Where, yeah, they've all, or not all, but a lot of the original actors that played as kids, it's them as adults now. So it's like Ralphie as an adult trying to have Christmas, and yeah. But see, like I don't want it to ruin. Yeah, I don't know. I can't decide. Anyway, let's see. Oh, in A Christmas Story, Ralphie decodes a message with his secret decoder ring. Maybe y'all don't know much about this movie. What is the message that he decodes? Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. It's a crummy commercial. What language does Ralphie's father think the word fragile is when he gets his prize? But what language is he? Italian, yeah. Fragile. It must be Italian. I think that says fragile. So a few years ago, when we went to California, when we went to LA with our family, we took a tour of Warner Brothers, and we got to go through like basically their huge prop warehouse. And I've got a picture somewhere on my phone of the leg lamp. It's just sitting over in this room, just this random piece of furniture among a whole bunch of other. And I was like, oh. Anyway.
I found a leg lamp the other day. It's for people our age, and she's got nurse's shoes on, an old lady socks. It's only this tall.
It's a what? It's a lamp?
It's a leg lamp for old.
Oh, a leg lamp for. Yeah, with like orthopedic shoes and yeah. Okay, how funny. Yes, he ordered one. Last one. How many new, and this is for 2022, how many new Christmas movies did Hallmark release this year?
Oh my goodness. 365.
Seems like it, doesn't it?
Started back in October, I think.
Yeah. How many new ones? They do some reruns too, but how many new ones did they do? Not quite that many. 75. A little bit less. Y'all are over. It's 40. They did 40, which to me is still like way high.
Exactly. Yeah.
I did watch one.
Yeah. Yeah. 40. Yeah. 40 movies that are all the same plot. The exact same plot. So, I was going to say, your daughter loves Hallmark movies.
Yeah, because it's so live, and it's going to be, and it's always happy. And she says, with the things she deals with, just having that.
There's
happy
always a happy
ending.
ending. Yep. Now they got competition because like Lifetime has completely, at least for the month of December, has flipped where they're doing all these like Hallmark kind of movies. I don't know if they've made their own or if they're just, I don't know. I don't know all the details. Scoop and a half. Yep. You're welcome.
Since he doesn't drink coffee, we'll let him.
I know how to make it. I got instructed. Okay, so okay. It's a scoop and a half. I've been told that white scoop that's in there, a full scoop and then a half scoop.
Woo!
I just do the full.
Connie, just one scoop.
Scoop and a half.
It's scoop and a half.
Scoop and a half. That's why y'all like coffee on Tuesdays when you come to class, and the coffee is so much better. This is why.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
doesn't pertain, but does anyone remember how to make those haystack candies out of, chow mein noodles?
Haystack candies
Yeah,
Chow mein noodles, butter.
out of chow mein noodles.
Marshmallows.
But I didn't, and one had M&Ms, but I used, it was peanut butter and the noodles and chocolate, but I couldn't remember.
No,
Is
butterscotch. It's not, yeah, it's not chocolate, it's butterscotch and marshmallows.
I've never heard of this ever.
Well, I wanted to make them the other day for the great grandkids, and I couldn't remember how to make them. I bought the noodles.
You bought the noodles not knowing how to make whatever you're going to make with the noodles. Did you think that once you bought the noodles, it would come back to you? Yeah.
Noodles you've never had in your life.
And the no-bake cookies, I used to bake them all the time the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's. Maybe she's baking. You're baking the no-bake cookies. That's the problem. Okay, we're going to look at Micah today. So if you got your Bibles, your Bible apps, get to yes, yeah.
Real thing or flavoring? With the real thing or flavoring? Okay, thank you.
Did you even have to ask?
My daughter made rum balls over the weekend and eyeballed the rum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
One of
very
those
good,
varieties.
wasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't
Yeah.
make her rum balls though.
These are no-bake
These are no
rum.
rum balls.
I want that recipe.
It's just like grab some cake batter and dunk it in a thing of rum. Anyway, all right, we're in Micah. I don't know how much you guys even know very much about Micah because Scripture doesn't really tell us a whole lot about him. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background information, and then we'll get into some of his message. If you look there in chapter 1, Micah chapter 1 and verse 1, it says, I'll go ahead and read it because there's a couple of hard words. The word of the Lord came to Micah of Moresheth during the reigns of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. And this is the vision that he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Okay? So it tells you who he is and kind of gives you a little bit of at least a time frame of when he was prophesying. So Moresheth was just this little kind of, it'd be like a farming community in our context nowadays. And I mean, if you look on the map over here, it would be kind of over on the western part of Judah, really on the Philistine, on the border with the Philistine kingdom. As a matter of fact, there's some references to being called Moresheth Gath, and Gath was a territory in a Philistine territory, so it's just right there on that border. But there's not a whole lot that we know about that town. There's not a whole lot that we know about just kind of the area. It's just a rural area. So there's something automatically, a similarity that automatically comes to the front with Micah and Amos. If y'all remember, I was talking about Amos. He was a farmer. He wasn't like a professional prophet. He wasn't a religious leader. He was a shepherd and a fig tree farmer. And God gave him a message to go preach. So Micah's kind of the same way. It's not that it doesn't appear to be that he has this upbringing, as a priest or some kind of a religious person. We don't know his background before he started prophesying. We just know God gave him messages to preach, and he started preaching. And then the specific people that he mentions prophesying during, these are all kings of Judah. Okay. Remember, we got our two kingdoms. We got Israel to the north and Judah to the south. When Micah started prophesying with Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, Israel was still, at this point, was still a country. Now we've talked about like Jeroboam II, that was the king of Israel, and all the wealth and the power that he had when Amos was prophesying, when Jonah was prophesying. But now we're probably a good, at least 20 years further down the road, maybe a little more, and things have started to fall apart for Israel. And the kingdom of Assyria, you remember us talking about them when Jonah had to go preach at Nineveh, to the Assyrians, and they were just starting to grow in their power. The Assyrian Empire has started, which again you can't see on this map, but it would be up in this area of here, in the area of modern day Iraq. But it has started to flex its muscles and move west. So it's taking over territory directly to the north of Israel, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, and is starting to move south. Okay? So Israel is losing territory, is losing power, and all the nations in this whole area. I mean, we got Israel and Judah, but you got the Syrians, you got the Moabites, you got the Edomites. They're all worried about this Assyrian power that's moving south when Micah is prophesying. But he only mentions prophesying with these kings of Judah. And probably one of the reasons is because if it's these three kings, Israel ends up getting conquered and destroyed during this time. So he's only, or whoever wrote down his words, if it's not him writing them down himself, is only focused on who was reigning in Judah at the time. But with him prophesying during these guys' reigns, that makes him a contemporary of Isaiah, probably Hosea. We just got done talking about Hosea. So he's probably contemporary of those guys and prophesying at about the same time. Like I said, in Israel, things are falling apart. It's all evil kings. They are still continuing idol worship. They are assassinating each other and taking over the throne, and the guy reigns for a few months, and somebody assassinates him, and it's turmoil. And eventually, the Assyrians come and conquer Israel, as he calls it here, Samaria, which was the capital of Israel, and takes a lot of the Israelites away, deports them somewhere else, slaughters a bunch of them, and deports them somewhere else, and brings people from other countries in there. I won't go too far down this road. Y'all know me. I like getting into the Old Testament kings, but I'm not going to go too far into that today. But you got Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Hezekiah is the one who is reigning in Judah when the Assyrians come and surround the city of Jerusalem. I don't know if y'all remember the story or not, but the Assyrians offer for the people of Judah to surrender. And their officials are like, you know what? You just lay down your arms and just come with us, and we're going to take you to a wonderful place, a new home. There's rivers and trees and all sorts. It's just going to be great, which was a lie, but they were telling them that, And Hezekiah, they're walled up inside the city of Jerusalem. He's like, y'all need to hang tough. Y'all need to hang tough. You stay with us. God's going to take care of us. And this is both in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles and in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is there telling Hezekiah, God's going to take care of you. He's going to rescue you. And he does. And it's one night in the middle of the night is when the death angel comes through and kills 185,000 Assyrian troops. And whoever's left goes back home, to Assyria. And so Judah survives the advance of the Assyrian Empire. Okay? Micah gets to witness all that too. We don't get those details from him. We see that in Isaiah, but he's prophesying at the same time. He gets to see all that. Does that make sense? So when we read about some of the things that Micah is dealing with, I just want you to understand the context. The other thing is about, Jotham was actually a pretty good king. He was trying to do things that God wanted him to. He was trying to, help the people at least continue their temple worship. But if you read through 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, you find out that he didn't completely get rid of other gods and goddesses in the country. It was kind of okay, we really need to worship God, but if you're going to worship these other gods, just kind of keep it to yourself, kind of thing. Ahaz went completely the other way, stopped worshiping God, did a lot of evil things. But Ahaz is also the guy that Isaiah prophesies to when well, I won't go too far down that path. That's taking us into Isaiah, and we're not talking about Isaiah. So Ahaz is an evil king. Things fall apart for him, and then Hezekiah comes to the throne and kind of reestablishes not only some power and some wealth, but also a much deeper connection with God. He really kind of cleans out the country and really gets people focused on God again. So between Hosea, Isaiah, and Micah, with those three guys prophesying, there's some, at least for a while, some effectiveness to their message. There's some of these kings and a lot of the people that listen and tune in and actually make some changes. Okay? It's kind of the biographical part of this. Any questions so far about all that? Okay. So, depending on, what commentary you go read or what preacher you listen to or what blog post you read or whatever, there's all sorts of different opinions about, like, what's the main theme of Micah. Again, he's very similar to Amos in that one of the biggest issues is, I guess, what we would label as like social justice. That's a big problem with the rich getting richer and taking advantage of the poor. Obviously, still dealing with idol worship and things like that. But it's really about just people cheating in business and judges taking bribes and all those kinds of things. He addresses that kind of stuff, huh? I mean, there's some similarities, to today. So for me, like the central theme, or I guess the key verse that I think the rest of Micah kind of centers around is a verse that's probably familiar to a lot of us. And it's in chapter 6. There's only 7 chapters, but towards the end, in chapter 6, in verse 8, there's this very familiar verse, okay? Micah 6, verse 8, He has showed you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. How many of y'all have ever heard that before? Okay. And maybe some of you got it, printed and, put up on your house, wall art or something like that. I mean, it's an amazingly powerful statement. But you see in it, I'm kind of shuffling through some of my notes here. With this statement from Micah, or I guess God through Micah, you also see some of the things that that are causing sorry, I got something in my throat. That are causing problems in the kingdoms of Israel and Judah at the time. Okay? So, first of all, what's the first thing he says? What does God want you to do? Okay, to do justly, act justly. Anybody else got a different phrasing? That?
Written in do justice, and I'm sure that's from one of your sermons.
To do justice. Yeah, do justice, act justly, do justly. So what does that mean?
Be fair.
In what parts? Be fair in what parts of life? That's a good answer, but in what parts of life? In everything that we do, right? Be fair with each other. Let me give you a couple examples that you just see in Micah of what God is addressing here, okay? Go back to chapter 2. Micah chapter 2. I'm going to have y'all flip to a couple of pages here, or scroll there. I'll start with verse 1. Micah chapter 2 and verse 1. Woe to those who plan iniquity, to those who plot evil on their beds. At morning's light they carry it out because it is in their power to do it. They covet fields and seize them, and houses and take them. They defraud a man of his home, a fellow man of his inheritance. So look at some of the description that Micah uses here. First of all, he says, when are people coming up with like the ideas of bad things to do? Laying there in bed at night going, what could I do? And it's almost like they're thinking as they're going to sleep that night, what could I do wrong tomorrow? Which sounds dumb. Like, who does that, right? But that's how bad things seem to be to God with his people. That we're conjuring up ideas while we're laying down at night of evil things that we can do. And then when they wake up in the morning, what do? They go do it. I had this great plan last night, okay? And in verse 2, he describes what's some of what they're doing. Okay, they covet, they see something, and they want it for themselves.
So they take it by violence?
And then they go take it. Okay? Yeah, and it's not just, they're not just working out deals. They're just taking it. I'm going to take this because I want it. They defraud a man of his home, a fellow man of his inheritance. And this goes all the way back to, if you read like around the Ten Commandments, if you go back to Exodus and Deuteronomy, probably even some in Leviticus, where God is giving laws on how his people were to deal with each other. There were specific laws that God gave about land and property, and those things stayed within your family, within your clan, and you don't go and you're not allowed to just take that from somebody else. And if God even had laws where if somebody, sold their property in order to pay off a debt or in order to, buy food for their family or whatever, you could hold on to that property for 6 years, but on the 7th year, you had to give it back to them for free because God was very intentional about people having and keeping their family property. And it goes all the way back to when they were slaves in Egypt and had no property. And he's like, we're not going to go back to that anymore. My people are always going to be able to experience having something that's theirs that I have given them. Okay? So what's happening? They're taking this land. And are they paying fair prices for it? No, they're just taking it. Just taking it. Y'all remember the story in the Old Testament of Ahab? You remember evil King Ahab? Y'all remember that name? Jezebel was his wife. Yep. Awful, awful couple. And Ahab, who was the king, had in his, I guess you would call it his summer palace in Jezreel. This is in 1 Kings, probably about chapter 19, 20, 21, somewhere around there. There was a guy named Naboth that had a vineyard that was right next to his palace. Well, he wanted that land for himself. So he goes to Naboth and he says, let me buy it from you. Naboth's like, no, because why? It's been in my family for generations. And he even offers him, like, I'll give you money. I'll give you better land. I'll give you a better vineyard. He's like, no, I'm like 5th, 10th generation person to own this. I don't want to give it to you. And so Jezebel conjures up this plan to have a bunch of people falsely accuse him of blasphemy and get him stoned to death. And then what does Ahab do? He takes it. Doesn't even pay for it. He just takes it. Oh, the owner of this property is dead. I'm the king. I'll just take it. And that is when God, in that moment, predicted, you're going to die, and it's going to be a violent death, and, went on from there. Because God was very intentional about everybody. It wasn't that everybody had to have everything equal, but everybody had to have something. And if I have something myself, I need to be willing to share that with somebody else. And if somebody else has just a little, I don't need to take it from them. Does that make sense? So, here in Micah, what's one of the things that's happening? They see somebody's home. They see somebody's land. They just take it. God's got a problem with that. Skip down to verse 9. You have driven the women of my people from their pleasant homes. You take away my blessing from their children forever. Okay, same thing. They're even these probably talking about widows who are still trying to hold on to the property after their husband dies, and they're taking advantage of them. Go over to chapter 3. No, that's God speaking. That's God speaking through Micah. Chapter 3. Hold on. Verse. Where do I want to start? Verse 9. Hear this, you leaders of the house of Jacob, you rulers of the house of Israel, who despise justice and distort all that is right, who build Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with wickedness. Her leaders judge for a bribe, her priests teach for a price, and her prophets tell fortunes for money. Yet they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? No disaster will come upon us. So, a couple of things in there. What's God frustrated with his people about in verses 9, 10, and 11? Okay? Yeah. Taking the stuff and taking bribes. I'll do whatever you want if you pay the right price.
And taking the Lord and saying, don't worry about it, the Lord's going to take care of us.
Right.
Even though they were doing wrong.
Right.
They still were proclaiming,
Yeah, we're fine. We got God on our side. Yep. And he addresses both here because he talks about Israel, which, was still present, we assume, when he's saying this. And then Zion is another, just another name for the city of Jerusalem. So he's talking about Judah when he talks about Zion and Jerusalem. So both kingdoms he's addressing here. But, they're defrauding people. They're accepting bribes. They're cheating people. And then even the people who are supposed to be speaking for God, even the preachers, their messages are based on what? Yeah. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to preach about? I'll prophesy anything you want me to if the price is right. Man, I hope there's not preachers like that nowadays, but I'm sure there probably are. But there's this. It was happening so often. It had kind of become part of the culture that the guys, I guess, like Micah or like Isaiah, these different guys, there were other guys who were just saying whatever people wanted them to say if they paid them the right price. And then to say, okay, yeah, these things are bad, or there's some bad things happening, but I mean, it's going to be fine. Because why? We got God. We got this temple. God's not going to let anything happen to us. And there's some of the other prophets that address this later. When Israel does get destroyed, the people of Judah, and they survive under Hezekiah, they kind of have that attitude. Like, you know what? Those evil people up there, they got destroyed. God's never going to allow anything to happen to us. Which he saved them for the Assyrians, but guess what? The next empire that comes along is the Babylonians, and they're destroyed by the Babylonians. So we'll get to that on down the road. But there's this, I don't know if it's, I guess you could label it arrogance, or just being naive. I'm not for sure, kind of what adjective to put on it. I don't think that it's just a brashness of just being that cocky that like nothing could ever happen to us, or just being that ignorant, for lack of a better word, and just assuming that no matter what, God's going to take care of us. And things have gotten bad, and maybe some other armies have conquered us some, but God's never going to allow us to be completely destroyed. So that gives me permission to go do what I want. And I address this sometimes. I used to address it a lot with teenagers when I was doing youth ministry, but we struggle with it as adults too. Sometimes we know some of the things we're doing are not the right thing to do. We know that some of the things we're doing are hurtful to us or to other people. And yet we still keep doing those things. And one of the reasons why, especially when you get into like addictions and stuff like that, is because we haven't hit rock bottom yet. And we kind of feel like, yeah, but it'll work out. Or it's not that big a deal. Or, I want to do that. Yeah, but okay, that was hurtful, but they're always going to forgive me. And this is kind of what God is addressing through Micah. Like, the time is coming. There's not going to be any more mercy. There's not going to be any more chances. Your time is running out.
Is that kind of like people that proclaim to be Christians and have been baptized and all that, they go on doing whatever they did,
Mm-hmm.
now they say they have the blood of Jesus?
Yeah, we can treat it that way. We can treat, God's grace that way. Huh?
Sometimes we do.
Often we do. Oh, I'll just get forgiveness for it anyway. And we treat our relationships that way. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I was just say, having that mindset though, isn't that pretty much like null and void of you not truly accepting Christ?
Well,
It's hard. I know that's a hard.
no, that's a hard question. There are some people, and definitely some different denominations. This is when you start getting into, can you lose your salvation and stuff like that, which I believe that you can. But for people who don't think so, they would say, well, you never were really truly saved originally. And maybe that's getting into semantics. I don't know. But yes, I think that you can, if you just decide, even though you've gone through the whole salvation process and you know what it's like to be God's child and you know what it's like to have His Spirit living in you, and then you just decide, I'd rather live this life instead, and just willfully consistently choose to do something else, then yeah, I think you can lose it, and I think there's awful consequences because of it. However, I think that um, the blood of Jesus covers an awful lot, even those times when I intentionally do things that I know I shouldn't. Does that make sense? I think it's more of a lifelong choice of that than just a one or two time choices. And I think that's what God is getting at here. I'm describing your lifestyle. You guys are consistently waking up in the morning, choosing to do things that I do not want you to do. I don't want the people who wear my name to do those things, and yet you're going and doing it. And just eventually, we're not connected anymore. We're not in a relationship anymore, and you're going to have consequences to deal with because of that. I think that's the same for us. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So I kind of got off track a little bit, but one of the big issues, I've showed you a couple of verses here, is just this injustice and this cheating and lying and conniving and taking things that don't belong to us. So going back to chapter 6, verse 8, what's one of the things that God wants his people to do? Act justly. Treat people fairly. Don't take advantage of people. Okay? The second thing there is what? Act justly and then do what? Love mercy. Does anybody else have different phrasing for that? Love kindness? Okay. Okay. What are we talking about when we talk about mercy or kindness? I know those kind of seem self-explanatory, but what does it mean to show mercy to someone, to show kindness to someone?
Someone can really do a bad situation, something to you, you show mercy on them.
Okay, they've hurt me, they've done something to me, but I forgive and I let it go. Good. Anything else?
We can be proactive with our kindness and with our mercy, we see people, and if you just do something nice for them,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just a text message that says, hey, I love you, I hope you have a great day,
Mm-hmm.
you're proactively showing kindness and love to them, and I think that's what we ought to be doing.
Yeah, it's not just about have they done something to me that I'm not going to punish them for. What do they need that I can provide for them?
I'm really bad about 6:30 in the morning sending out text messages to my grandkids and to my friends.
Yeah.
And saying, I love you, I hope you have a great day.
Well, that's just awful. You are really bad about that. That's just terrible.
And I do it at 6:30 in the morning, yeah. I'm just really rising.
Yeah.
But I've gotten more reaction back from that.
Mhm.
You have no idea how that helps.
Yeah, just simple kindnesses.
I think that's proactively being kind.
Mhm.
I think that's what he's talking
Yeah.
about right there.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Lou? Yes. God shows mercy to us, for sure. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was just gonna say that I have three people that every single morning I send a verse to.
Yeah.
And one of them is my sister-in-law of my brother that passed.
Mm-hmm.
And she has started to go to church.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, I don't know if it's because I send her the verse,
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever. I have no idea why she's decided to go back to her church
Yeah.
she was raised in. But it's a start.
Yeah, she's going to church again, but you're showing her, and that's what I want to like. Mercy for me, I always think about not punishing someone, and that is part of it. Showing kindness to someone who deserves some kind of consequences, who deserves punishment, who deserves retaliation, and I don't retaliate. I show kindness instead. I don't give them punishment. That's mercy. But I think, to your point, this Hebrew word would probably be translated better as compassion. I see a need that somebody has. I have the capacity to do something about that, and so I go out of my way to meet that need, whatever it is. It might be they need forgiveness from me, so I'm going to do that. It might be that they need something that I have, so I'm going to share it with them. It might be that they just need encouragement. They need companionship, and I'm going to provide that for them. It's a need that somebody has, and I'm fulfilling that need. That's the compassion, that's the kindness, the mercy that is being talked about here. Now, here's the key thing about this, though. What word does he put in front of that? What's the action word? Okay, we act justly, but we love mercy. Okay, how passionate am I about being compassionate?
Sometimes, I mean, I know we talk a lot about boundaries and stuff, but
Mhm.
I feel like that's enough. That's I can give. Like that's probably it. I think that's a big downfall, or also an understanding of Christ and God. Like, man, just over and over and over.
Yeah.
They keep giving us mercy, and we're like, no.
Yeah. All right, enough. I'm not showing mercy anymore. You've had your chances. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? I mean, what are we talking about? We love mercy.
Well, when Christy taught that class in here back in the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about mercy and grace, and that mercy is a step above grace.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we think about all the things that grace covers for us,
Yeah.
we should be showing mercy to everybody
Right.
and receiving mercy for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I've been shown mercy. I should be showing it, to other people. I think maybe this is just confession on my part. I will decide who I want to show compassion and kindness to. We don't like articulating it that way, but we kind of do, right? Like, okay, I'll help this person out. I ain't helping that person out. And maybe it's because of time. Maybe it's because I don't really like them. Maybe it's because I think they don't deserve it. Whatever it is, I make decisions about who I'm going to distribute my compassion and my kindness to, right? Maybe that's just me. When we love mercy, that wipes any boundaries away. Now, hear me say, I think it's good to have healthy boundaries, to not put yourself in a position to be abused or be taken advantage of. But even in that, how can I show compassion and kindness? When people need help, need a handout, need something from me, is my initial thing like, oh, they're just trying to take advantage, and there's all about them, or do I really think, man, here's something I have, they can have it, and I think a lot of us, at least a lot of people in this room, we are kind of like that. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm saying God tells his people, I want you to get to the point where you just love the opportunity to show kindness. It's the same thing, or similar. I shouldn't say the same. It's similar to when Paul in 2 Corinthians says that God loves a cheerful giver, and that word cheerful is, I can't remember the exact Greek word. It's where we get the word hilarious from. That I am beyond excited for the opportunity to give. And he says even the Macedonians, they were asking Paul, can we give to this thing that you're collecting money for? Please give us the opportunity. Do I have that kind of attitude when I see other people in need, whether it's a physical need, a monetary need, a friendship need, whatever it is, where I can't wait to show kindness. That's what God is wanting for his people. Okay? Act justly, love mercy, and what's the third one? Walk humbly with God. What are we talking about there?
My Bible also says prudently.
Prudently? Okay? Walk humbly, walk prudently. What does that mean?
Maybe not acting like, well, God's on my side, I've got it all, and not acting like because I'm able to help you out, I'm better than you, or something like that. To be able to be willing to help people without feeling like you're better than they are because you can help.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not putting myself up above them. I have the opportunity to help, but I'm not thinking to myself as better because I have the opportunity to help. Yeah? Anybody else?
Remembering that we're all God's people and that, just remembering where you came from.
Yeah.
And your relationship with Him. So.
Yeah, remember where we came from. Remember who we are compared to Him. Yeah. So there's two things about this. One is and maybe we don't pay as much attention to this, but if you're walking, there's action taking place. Okay, which indicates something about God, right? God is not passive. God is not just hanging out somewhere up in heaven and just twiddling his thumbs. God is active and he's moving in this world. And so one thing is I'm supposed to be active and moving and not just sitting and twiddling my thumbs either. I'm walking with him. So me being with him, I got to have a relationship with him. I got to be connected with him. I'm spending time in his word. I'm forgiven. I'm tuning into his spirit. I'm doing this really fast because we're running out of time. I'm staying in that relationship with him, but I'm doing it humbly, prudently. I'm recognizing, I guess I put it this way, I'm letting him drive. And we're going to go whatever direction it is that he wants to go. And that might be the hardest part of this. Like, I'll walk with God as long as he's going the direction that I want to go. As long as we move to whatever state I want to move to. As long as he, blesses whatever job I want. As long, I'll put my list of demands out there. And if God puts a stamp of approval on all that, then he and I are walking together. There's a certain amount of surrender here, letting go of my own agenda, my own plans, or maybe even, I don't know, volunteering for stuff or doing some things that stretch me a little bit because I know that's what God is calling me to. That's who God is calling me to, whatever it is. Does that make sense? Walking humbly with God. In the context of God's people that Micah is talking to, they felt like they had a relationship with God, right? We got the temple. We're offering sacrifices. We're going through the routine. But they also had their own agenda. I want to grab this property. I want to take advantage. I want to accept this bribe. But I'm still, we're connected. God and I, we're close. We're good. I go to the temple every Saturday. You see what I'm talking about? It's a consistent relationship and is surrendering my will to his. So that's the walking humbly part. Now, as we kind of tie a bow on this, why do you think that before he says this is what God wants from you, which, let me completely interrupt myself. Does anybody have a different word there besides require? Like I've got, what does the Lord require of you? Does anybody have a different word for require? Does everybody say require? Okay, so that Hebrew word, this wasn't Greek, this is ancient Hebrew this is written in, meant to seek after, to hunt for something, to pursue something. Not pursue, but to search for something. I'm on the hunt for something. Does that make sense? So it's not, sometimes we read this and it's God's checklist of requirements and what does God require. It's not a requirement in that sense. It's more, we could ask it like, what is it that God is searching for? As God is looking at his world, as God is looking at us, he's looking at me, what is it that he's searching for? He's searching for someone who acts justly, loves mercy, and is in a relationship walking humbly with him. That's what he's craving. That's what he's searching for. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, we got this here in verse 8. Why is that the question? What does the Lord require of you? It's a horrible way to ask that question, of the question. Let me just clarify. I'm sorry. If you back up to, hold on, I wrote it down. Same chapter. Look at verse 3. We'll just start with verse 3. My people, what have I done to you? How have I burdened you? Answer me. I brought you up out of Egypt, redeemed you from the land of slavery. I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam. My people remember what Balak, king of Moab, counseled and what Balaam, son of Beor, answered. Remember your journey from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord. So, what is God's question to his people? Before this question in verse 8. Yeah. What?
What bad things have I done to you?
And he says, how have I burdened you? Why would they feel like God was burdening them? We got these sacrifices, we got these rules. I want this land. Why won't you let me have it? All these, stipulations and all this laws that you're putting on me, and it's weighing me down, it's burdening me. And what's God's question? How have I burdened you? Look what I've done for you. I set you free. I set you free from slavery. Not only that, but when other people wanted to slaughter you, I protected you. How in the world have I made your life worse? Is this not what parents sometimes feel having conversation with their kids? You just, and like, how have I made your life worse? Look at what I've done for you, right? Sometimes we feel that about maybe our employees or just different people who come across like we are such a burden to them. But look at what good I'm doing for you. This is where God's frustration is. We're choosing these other guys and we're choosing this other lifestyle. Why? Because this lifestyle that God's having us live is too much.
Well, does it imply too that with all the rules,
See you later, Daisy.
that they're already adding on to the original stuff?
Could be. I don't know if that's happening at this point because that really takes place more after they've been in Babylonian captivity and come back, because then they're scared about that happening again. So then they start putting on a whole lot more laws and rules. This is more, I think, just looking at the nations around them and what those gods allow versus our God, and what the laws of those people allow versus our God. And so if you read that, especially verse 3, how have I burdened you? How have I weighed you down? How have I made your life worse? Then you read verse 8. Okay? What is God saying here then in verse 8? It's not a gigantic, I know there's the law. I know there's the law of Moses. There's these rules, these regulations. But overall, what am I looking for? He said, what does the Lord require? Is the Lord searching for sacrifices? Is the Lord searching for making sure that you keep the Sabbath exactly right and all that kind of? Now, is that stuff important? Sure. Is that what God's searching for? No. What is God searching for? People who are fair and just and compassionate and walking with Him. If they would do these things, guess what would happen with all those other laws and regulations? They just fall into place. Guess what happens for us nowadays? When people outside of church and outside of Christianity are like, God, so many rules and regulations. And what is it that God wants from us? What's the two rules? The two greatest commands. Love Him and love other people. The more that we do that, what happens to all the other rules that we see in Scripture? They fall into place. Yeah. So, 1,300 years ago, God tells His people, this is all I'm looking for. I'm not trying to make your life worse. This is all I want from you. And they still struggle to make it happen. So, that in a nutshell is Micah. Is there more there? Absolutely. It's only 7 chapters. You can read through it. I will say this. I neglected to mention this earlier, but Micah is mentioned one other time in Scripture, besides here in his own book, and that's in Jeremiah. And did I write it down? It's in Jeremiah. I'll tell you real quick, and then y'all can go. Jeremiah 26 and verse 18, when Jeremiah is prophesying, and Jeremiah prophesied probably close to 100 years after Micah, but he's saying some really harsh things, and people have captured him and want to kill him for saying things on behalf of God that they didn't want to hear. and somebody steps forward and says, Micah was prophesying during Hezekiah's time and said things that people didn't want to hear, and they ended up listening to him and making some changes. Maybe we should do that. So even after Micah wasn't around anymore, people were still looking to him as an example of somebody who, said the hard things and caused some changes in people's lives. So anyway, that's any quick questions or comments, anything about Micah? I know we just answered all of it. I mean, we got them all figured out. It's well, thanks. I know we went through just that verse 8 for the most part, 6 verse 8, but there's some really good stuff in here, and I would encourage you to take, won't take you probably 10 minutes to read through. It's a short book, but there's some good stuff in there. And, oh gosh, I keep thinking of things I was going to tell you. The final thing, Micah in Hebrew, that word, that name, means who is like Yahweh. And Yahweh's, one of the Hebrew names for God. I forgot. I'm so sorry I didn't show you this. In chapter 7, at the very end of Micah, verse 18, after he said all this stuff about, here's all the things that are going wrong, here's what God's going to do, but there's hope at the end of this. Even though God's going to punish you, God's going to restore you, okay? And he says in verse 18, who is a God like you, who pardons sin and forgives the transgression of the remnant of his inheritance? You do not stay angry forever, but delight to show mercy. It's just a cool thing that I guess Micah does, or whoever wrote it down this way, that his name means who is like our God, and he ends his prophecy, or at least the writings of his prophecy, with that question: who is like our God? It's calling his own name to the forefront and saying, but there is nobody like our God. Nobody shows compassion and kindness and forgiveness like our God does. Okay, I'm done. I'll stop talking. Y'all can stick around as long as you want to, but I'll turn the camera off and we can visit some more. Thank you for being here.